Remembering Connecticut, Immigrant Mutual Aid. It was just over 100 years ago, in 1884, that Paul Rousseau and 30 other New Haven immigrants formed La Fratellanza, the first Italian society in Connecticut. 3 years later, 20 Jewish women who had immigrated from Germany founded the Hartford Rebeccas, probably the first Jewish mutual aid society in Hartford. These early immigrants pioneered what was to become one of the most important and widespread types of organization in the state of Connecticut, the ethnic society. By the late 1930s, New Haven Italians had 223 separate associations. Hartford's Eastern European Jews had 120, and Bridgeport's Slovaks had over 60. These groups played a crucial role not only in the ethnic communities, but also in the economic development, labor organizing, and political life of the state. Immigrants had started pouring into Connecticut in the 1880s and continued to come by the hundreds of thousands until World War I. By the 1930s, nearly two-thirds of Connecticut's population were immigrants and their families. Most of these immigrants were poor. They received little protection from government or employers against the hazards of life in an industrial city. They survived in a difficult and often harsh new world, not only by individual effort, but also through mutual aid, the help they provided for each other, especially in times of trouble. Besides providing benefits to members in need, immigrant societies performed many other functions as well. They sent aid back to the old country, supported political movements in both old land and new, celebrated traditional religious festivals, visited and cared for sick members, and provided funeral services and burial for the dead. Bertha Silver's husband, who came from the island of Santiago in the Portuguese Cape Verde Islands, belonged to two clubs.
They just went by their tradition. That was the whole thing. When they have a baby christening, they would start one Saturday and they celebrate the whole week. Now when somebody died, they would celebrate maybe 2-3 days, stay up all night, and if taverns was open, which the tavern used to be open late, they go from tavern to tavern, yeah.
Black migrants from the American South, who began coming to Connecticut in growing numbers during and after World War I, formed similar groups. Hiotha Hoefler describes one such organization in Waterbury.
Actually, it was founded just before the First World War, but it didn't get full use as a settlement house to later in the 20s. And then finally, it gradually worked itself into basically a society or clubhouse, I guess, as it went on. It was a focal place for people to meet each other, family members that had come up from the South later than earlier members. It seemed to have been in the 20s and 30s a focal point for entertainers coming to Waterbury. Paul Robeson was one that came. Red Fox was the entertainer that came, and basically there were a lot of stories of his humor on Pearl Street there.
The mutual aid groups gradually became less important as the English-speaking, American-born descendants of immigrants grew more independent of their ethnic communities. Frank Cochran grew up in Seymour.
Years ago, when the old-timers were living, there was a very strong association about clubs. They used to have their picnics. We used to walk to a picnic in the summertime and everything else, which now it seems to be, I don't know, after World War II, it sort of died down. Before that, the younger ones used to take over and join the clubs that their fathers belonged to. But now it seems to be, since the World War II, it sort of broke everything up, and that's the old-timers. Old-time clubs are sort of disbanding now.
Yet many ethnic clubs continue today in Connecticut towns, if less as a source of mutual aid than as a way for the descendants of immigrants to maintain a connection with their ethnic roots. Russell Sobin of Ansonia.
And now there's only one big society now, and that's the St. Peter and Paul Society, which is the St. Peter and Paul Church. Now that was started when they first come, and it's still going strong, but they got a lot of young blood in it. The parents made their son and grandson and so on, and so that's how they carried on. They still have a good membership.